Let me tell you the story of George. This is somebody that I admire. So George was my ex-wife's stepfather, and he was an engineering apprentice right in the mid part of the 20th century. And he and his cohort of mates would get a small wage, and his friends would go out to the pub together and enjoy a beer. George would go home and save his money. Now, when they all got their first jobs, the friends started to get mortgages and get married and move in and invest in that property. George didn't. George stayed in digs. So he was living in a poorer kind of lifestyle, and again saved his money. And he saved and moved up the ranks in the engineering firm. And then what George did was he took the money that he'd saved and he bought his first house, but he bought it outright in cash. And then you know what he did? He continued to save. While his friends were in maybe bigger properties with big mortgages, George owned his own house. So every bit of profit that he could squirrel away that came in from his wage wasn't going on mortgage and interest, it was going into savings. He then bought his second house, sold the first house, bought his second house in cash. And the first house had gone up in value, obviously. And then he did it again. He saved and he bought his third house in cash after selling his second home. And that was it. That was the third house, which was a beautiful property, and he lived in that until he died. Now, what's the lesson from this? It's a big one. So a few years ago, I remember that I wrote an article called Be a Farmer, Not a Hunter. And the idea of that is that in business building or in just economics generally, it's better to invest for things that are going to pay you over time rather than having to go out, make a kill, and then you have to go out and make another kill. I'm revising that idea now. Because the other thing is as well is that I'm now 12 months into my neurodivergence journey and coming to terms with the fact that I'm not wired the same as everybody else. And nobody's wired the same, right? And learning about the pattern that's known as ADHD, there is a kind of working idea in anthropology that this kind of phenotype, this way of gene expression, this pattern, recognizable pattern, had its purposes in hunter-gatherer tribes when it suited for some people to be more edgy, more drawn to risk, more drawn to movement, and coping well in extreme circumstances. Whereas for the majority, that didn't necessarily make sense. So there's an argument in anthropology that these people were the hunters. Now, if you take that on to what we're talking about with finance, investment, and business development as well, here's the point. We're not all the same. I'm not George. So I literally can't turn up every day and just build a business, right? I literally can't just squirrel money away. It's practically impossible for somebody like me. Now, you are the way that you are, and this is the point, that we need to be responsible, but we need to work with our careers and also our money in a way that suits the way that we actually are, that suits the way that we are designed. There's nothing wrong in the way that any of us is designed, but there are different ways of approaching life that either suit or don't suit your design. So what we're looking for is, if you're not somebody who can just keep putting money away in that way, what are your options? So that's what I'm going to be looking at in the next couple of videos as well. So I'll see you there.